Chapter 30. Flickering lights, long hallways, echoing footsteps, and Clearcreek's ability to suffocate life. The visit had replaced John's hope with torment. He'd sought solace through revenge tactics, anything that would lead 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓 to destruction. But if Rebecca wasn't even here anymore, he had nothing. Everything he thought he knew was redundant. The war was lost. Lisa's hand touched John's back. "Are you okay?" He shrugged his shoulders. "Somebody needs to destroy that man. Too bad it couldn't have been us." "We can still formulate a story." "No, we can't." "Sure we can. We get 𝗕𝗢𝗢𝗢𝗡 involved, we turn our focus on him." "No, she isn't here. For whatever reason, 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗢𝗓's let her go. There is nothing on him or 𝗕𝗢𝗢𝗓𝗢𝗡 or anyone. We have no story." "You give up too easily." "It's pointless. My career is damaged. Her life is ruined. There's no reason anymore. If you get involved, he'll just find a way to destroy you too. All we can do now is forget the whole thing." "John, you talk as if 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓 controls everyone." "Well, he does. At least anyone who gets near him." "He may control your patient, but he doesn't control you. You're not bound to him, so don't give him that power. Now let's just focus on getting some facts." "But there aren't any." "𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓's never denied getting money from 𝗕𝗢𝗢𝗓𝗓. That's not enough." They had rounded the corner toward the main hall when Lisa stopped. "Listen." Seconds later, a faint noise reoccurred. He turned toward the east hall but could see nothing. "What is it?" Lisa asked. John listened, then headed toward the noise coming from a broom closet door which was slightly ajar. The voice called again. "In here, Sanders." When he opened the door, John saw a trembling, white-faced Dr. Landerson who mouthed the words, "Get in here." John steered Lisa into the closet. Various cleaners and brooms lined the walls. Refills of toilet paper, soaps, and paper towels filled the shelves. A collection of mop buckets surrounded their feet. The smell of disinfectant was overpowering. As if breathing had been forgotten, Dr. Landerson struggled to speak. "I'm glad you're here." He swallowed hard. "We need to talk, but not here. Too dangerous for me. I can't afford to be seen with you. Not on the mountain. Everyone knows 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓's and me. I'll meet you at the Mission Inn off of Highway 95 tonight at 6:15. John nodded his head. "Be sure to bring her." Dr. Landerson pointed at Lisa. "Okay. All right. Everything's fine. I'll slip out of here first. Then you wait 5 minutes. Wait for the triple knock. That way you'll know it's safe." Dr. Landerson stacked his arms with toilet paper and began whistling an out-of-breath tune. After 5 minutes, they heard the knock. At 6:20 p.m., Dr. Landerson moved through the rotating doors of the Mission Inn. Although John and Lisa sat in the center of the lobby, he did not look at them. Instead, he circled around the lobby's perimeter, paused at different corners, approached various guests, and then turned away. "Do you think he sees us?" John asked. "I don't know. He hasn't even looked this way. Should we wave at him?" "Not yet," Lisa said. Moments later, Dr. Landerson joined them. In a soft whisper, he asked, "Did anybody follow you?" "No," John said. "Anyone look familiar?" "No." "Okay." Dr. Landerson spoke in his normal voice. "Let's have a seat, but not here. Follow me." He led them to a stiff blue couch in a far corner. They sat down and Dr. Landerson began. "You came at the right time today. When Anita told me you were back in Dr. 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓's office with a reporter, I was curious, but above anything else, your presence was a gift to me." Dr. Landerson took a moment to survey the area. His eyes glanced in all directions. After he had apparently deemed the situation safe enough, he continued. "After your termination, John, certain things seemed out of place. I did my own snooping and a bomb went off in my hands. I haven't been sure where to go with all this." He took a long breath and inspected a group of people passing by. After the intruders vacated the area, Dr. Landerson continued. Sanders, you're not going to believe the fraud that's embedded in the roots of that facility. I had no idea. With Downley? John asked. There's more than Downley. Lisa inched forward. Tell us all of it. I don't understand why I never questioned things, Dr. Landerson said. Why I accepted 𝗕𝗄𝗓𝗓 so freely, even when little things seemed unclear and wrong. Somehow, if I asked, I accepted his response that this is what Clearcreek is. I blindly followed him. Look where it's put me, where it's put us. I know, John. You tried to tell me before you left, but I refused to listen. I was adamant he knew what was best, and that all I needed to do was listen and follow. I thought he would make everything better. Instead, I've made some mistakes. Dr. Landerson lowered his head and slouched down into the couch. What do you have for us? Lisa asked. What do you know? He and Stanley Robertson are up to something. Who's Robertson? John asked. He's the doctor who replaced you. At least that's what the staff was told, but he and 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓 have known each other for years. So does Robertson know about 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓's and Downley's deal? Well, ever since Robertson came to Clearcreek, he and 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓 have had a secret unity, and 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓 is acting uptight, sometimes even frightened and paranoid. He stopped trusting me and began questioning little things. I took this personally, like I'd let him down, but then I overheard him and Robertson. What did you hear? Lisa asked. What did they say? They were discussing this idea about sending patients to different hospitals. That's when I became curious. Different hospitals, John said. 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓 mentioned something about that. Of course. You were the entire reason he removed them. There were a total of 4. Apparently it was a little trial period. At least that's what he told me. These other hospitals were supposed to share feedback on treatment programs they would prescribe for our patients. Each facility had a few different twists to their methods that we could learn from, and in turn, we had a great deal of insight we could offer them. Like always, I accepted his explanation with no questions. I blindly followed. But then I overheard your name and 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓's and Robertson's conversation. They said that after they were certain you'd cause no inquiries, the residents could return. So 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓 had been expecting me to do something, John asked. He found out about you visiting that patient and he was livid, declared that he would have you arrested on the spot. I'm not sure what you hope to accomplish by returning. Dr. Milton, under the direction of Dr. 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓, had pumped enough medication into her. Her mind was certainly altered. John fell into the stiff cushion, taking in the words Landerson had just shared. That's despicable, he said. 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓 has to be punished for this. How can one person do this to another person's life? So when did you learn about 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓's arrangements? Lisa asked. Landerson nodded his head at John while answering Lisa. The less things added up, the more curious I got. I had a spare key to his office and I knew how to get into his files. My sleuthing paid off, because I found the others. How many more? Like I said, a total of 4 were removed. Somehow all 4 had donations tied to them. They had no entrance bills, no visitors, and there were a few random listings of strange treatments that were unstable and ineffective. Only Dr. 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓's private files have records of this. This is unreal, John said. I told you, it's maddening. Tell us about the other patients, Lisa said. Due to confidentiality agreements, I can't say names, but patients number 1 and number 2 had only been at Clearcreek for a year. Honestly, I don't know much about them, although I was very surprised that patient number 1 had been relocated. And number 3? Lisa asked. Thanks to John, we know about her. I think all this began with patient number 4. Why? Lisa asked. How's patient number 4 different? Prior to this patient's admission, Clearcreek was financially losing strength. We'd lost the support of most insurance companies. Dr. Gravers showed me what each patient would be required to pay for us to remain in operation. The rise was astronomical. Individuals with serious illnesses were already turning to the government for long-term care. If we raised our costs, the gap between the state and us would only widen. I knew we were stuck. Dr. Gravers told me that unless something changed, we'd close down in 2 months. He began letting people go, and together we began to plan the relocation process for the residents. It was a sad time. Then suddenly one day, he told me not to worry. I asked about his new optimism, and he said he'd found the hidden loophole. He said not to worry about anything because we would be in business for a long time. I wanted to understand, so I pressed him for answers, but he simply said, "You worry about doing your job, and I'll worry about mine." I left it at that. Never thought about it again until I saw this inpatient's admittance date. Now, years later, I have my answer. I know why Clearcreek is still in business. "Tell us about this patient," Lisa asked. "What do you know about the family?" The patient had suicidal tendencies and a bipolar disorder. I spoke with his ex-wife when she brought him in. There'd been an ugly custody battle over the children. Even though she had won the majority of the custody, she was furious at the judge that her husband still had rights. She didn't trust him with the children, didn't know what he'd do to himself or them. However, his parents were very wealthy. So in order for this woman to keep a hold on their money, she volunteered to seek out the best care for their son. The parents lived in Texas, and the woman knew they would be only minimally involved in their son's recovery. To my knowledge, they never made any contact, but gave her all the funds necessary to meet the demands of his psychiatric treatments. Originally, I thought she had brought him here to ensure he received the best care, but apparently that was never her concern. Instead, she needed insurance that the children would never be placed in the hands of their mentally ill father. So she and Dr. Gravers worked out their own policy. John said, "Exactly. Through the years, this patient has floated back and forth between Clearcreek and our sister outpatient facility, with Gravers always keeping a firm hold on his whereabouts. The man's outpatient moments were short and guarded, and like I said, there were no visitors listed. I don't think the man had any contact with his children after he entered Clearcreek." John's hands clenched. "This is appalling. It's disgusting." "It is," Dr. Landerson said. "But I have copies of documents that will make Gravers' existence miserable." Lisa's eyes opened wide. "You have them here?" "I do." They spent an additional half hour looking over the documents, asking more questions, and exchanging contact information. Finally, the conversation came to a close. The group stood and stretched their legs. Before they left, though, John pulled Dr. Landerson aside. "Where's Rebecca?" "Arizona." "Arizona?" "I think Gravers wanted her out of the state, at least until the elections are over, for Downley's sake." "Do you know how she's doing?" "No." "I'd like to know." "Then I'll find out. At least make sure she's receiving the right care, that she's getting what she deserves. At this point, that's all that matters. And make sure Gravers can't touch her, that he has no power over her." "I'll do my best, Sanders."